So I'm going to take a completely different approach. That was a really high-level view of an extremely large, complex, and efficient organization. I'm going to sort of be more down in the weeds on my presentation, and I appreciate the other two speakers letting me switch places, although, like I said, it's a tough act to follow. And I had to chuckle. I had to put this in. When Jeff Griever called me to do this, initially it was, oh, can you just be on a panel? I said, fine. So then last week he sends me an email, and this is the charge. I'm supposed to aim this at young investigators, discuss innovative partnership ideas, thinking outside the box in regard to rare diseases, how to identify innovative approaches or thought process to therapy, how to pursue collaborations across disciplines, and oh, by the way, do it in 10 minutes. So we'll do our best. But what I thought I would do today, I was kind of struggling on how to do this. And I thought, in contradistinction to Dr. Trapnell's presentation, I thought I would really get down in the weeds and point out some, I think, very illustrative mistakes. I suspect that a lot of the speakers today are going to talk about all the great things that they've done and all the big papers they've published. And of course, I could do that. But what I thought I would do is highlight several goofs that I've made and illustrate, I think, lessons that I've learned from these, and I call them the top 10 lessons. And part of this I got from a friend of mine, Rick Barron, whose name you'll hear again, who's chair of neurology at Kansas, he's chancellor of research there, and is a wizardwire in the national CTSA. And I'm going to spend most of the time, and I think what Jeff really wanted me to talk about was how to foster collaborations across disciplines within the medical center. So that's what we're going to concentrate on. Now, the rare disease part I've got. Nobody cares about any of the diseases that I see. They're on the right. They're all rare. They're all considered orphan or rare diseases. And what I thought I would do is concentrate on, in particular, one of the muscular dystrophies, namely Duchenne dystrophy. And just to give everybody a frame of reference, it's the most common lethal X-linked recessive disease. It affects about 1 in 5,000 boys. This little boy has a Gowers maneuver, which I'm sure you all remember from pediatrics. Onset 3 to 5 years, slow progression, untreated, death by age 20, and it's due to a disruption of the dystrophin gene and protein. Very sad disease. The boys respond to prednisone now, and with aggressive pulmonary care live, some of them, I saw one this week that was 49 years old, but very devastating disease. So I was an intern, despite my youthful appearance, I was an intern here in 1978 and came back in 82 to do 3 years of fellowship. As a matter of fact, Dr. Catalan made the snarky comment, I'm glad I'm on the panel with two such old and eminent physicians as Dr. Krauser and Dr. Kissel. But I was a fellow here in 1982 and working with Jerry Mendel. And this was in the days when the fellow could cover the whole service without attending backup. And this was probably around 1984 or 5. And I was solo covering. I got a call from the emergency department that one of the Duchenne boys was down in the ED with a big dilated belly, big dilated bowel loops on x-ray. I called the surgeon. The surgeon came down and said, my God, he's obstructed. We got to take him to surgery. And they did, and of course found no obstruction. And Mike Griever remembers Jerry, who was, how shall we say, salty. He's at Nationwide Children. I'm talking about him like he's moved on, but he's still quite active, to say the least. But when Jerry got back, he sort of kicked my behind and said, why in the hell did you do that? And I said, because he was obstructed. He said, he wasn't obstructed. He said he just had dilated bowel loops, and boys with Duchenne get this. And he said, why don't we and I said, I didn't know that. He said, why don't we discuss this with one of the GI folks and figure out how to look at this? And in probably the stupidest comment I've made in 40 years of academic work, I said, oh, Jerry, let the new fellow do it. I've got enough going on. I'm doing my own projects. Let's just do it. Well, you know the rest of the story. I should have known. It led to a New England Journal of Medicine paper. Rick Barron was the fellow behind me, and with Ed Levine here in gastroenterology, they looked at gastric emptying times in boys with Duchenne, showed they were significantly delayed, and now this is accepted mantra that this is what these boys get. It really completely revolutionized sort of how we looked at Duchenne. It was the lead article in the New England Journal, and I said, no, I was too busy. So I learned some things from that, and for young clinical investigators, number one, this is like Dave Letterman, I got 10 of them. So case reports and observation can lead to prospective studies. The second one is listen to your mentor. It's just quite possible that he or she knows a heck of a lot more than you do. And Jerry certainly knew a heck of a lot more than I did in this category. And don't say no if it's something that you're interested in. I am constantly amazed at the number of junior faculty and clinical investigators that I associate with who I'll say, would you like to do this? And they say, oh no, I'm too busy, or no, that's never going to go anywhere. And I think what Jeff Griever had in mind about this was to think outside your specialty. I was so focused on the muscle disease in this boy, just forgot about that there could be other things involved. So fast forward 12 years, I guess. And so here is a left ventricular biopsy from a boy with Duchenne. And we've known for 40, 50 years that these boys get abnormal cardiograms, big fibrotic cardiomyopathies, and atrial arrhythmias. And now, again, my mentor, Jerry Mendel, I remember we talked about this, and Jerry made the comment, the heart's never a big deal in these boys with Duchenne. They don't get congestive heart failure because their metabolic demand is so low. And so we really didn't pay much attention to it. We didn't even send them to cardiologists. And what happened then was this young man. His name was Philip Wyant, and that's not a HIPAA violation because I'd asked his mother. He's 22 years old when this picture was taken, on steroids, has Duchenne, see the big fat calves. And Philip was doing great until he was on a camping trip with his parents, and he literally arrested, fell into the fire, didn't burn. I mean, they got it, but he died. So this led me to think maybe there's something going on. And Phil Binkley, one of the cardiologists here, one of the elder statesmen, we're literally walking to our cars one night, and I told him about this, and he said, you know, John, people in congestive heart failure usually don't die of congestive heart failure. They die of arrhythmias. So we started to talk about this, and I was just astonished at this whole world. This led me then to Suba Raman, who was supposed, is she here, by the way? She was supposed to be given this talk. I was pressed into emergency service. And Suba, this is a MRI from a boy with Becker dystrophy, showing very poor contractility function. But the point is I sort of followed the cardio brains back to their source. And you notice the time frame, this again is over another 10 years, that Suba was working with Jill Raphael Fortney on the animal model of Duchenne and cardiac function in animals, which eventually led last year to a clinical trial. And again, here I am right in the middle, but with the people at Children's Hospital. So this initial clinical observation led me to go outside the box, talk to the cardiologist, and actually learn something. So again, talk to your specialist colleagues and assume that they might know a little bit more about the disease than you do. And having just heaped praise upon my mentor, I will now say that even though they're usually smarter than you, sometimes they are wrong. And this is a case where the mentor was wrong. And so in following your insights, by the way, Chris Schilling in the back row, who's speaking later, works very closely with Jerry at Nationwide Children's, but Jerry and I still sort of chuckle about that one. And then thirdly, as a result of this early work, I was invited, again by Jerry, my mentor, to join the CIDD, or the Collaborative Investigation in Duchenne Dystrophy Group. And Bruce had a big list of a zillion different organizations up on the board. But this was my first national collaboration, and over the years I've been fortunate to participate in a number of collaborations and societies. And this isn't so much my mistake, but another mistake I see young faculty make, and young clinical investigators, is that they sort of shy away from the national spotlight. And to get to sort of lessons 7 and 8, one is obvious, and that is have more than one thing going at a time. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And to get back to the first case I presented with the Duchenne boy, I was working in the lab on inflammatory muscle disease, and I thought, well, you know, one disease is enough. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. And get your name and expertise out there by joining national and international collaborative groups. This sounds like I'm obsessed with Jerry Mendel, but when you work with somebody for 35 years and do 3 years of fellowship and he's your mentor, but probably the most valuable thing that Jerry taught me is that you are respected at a national level, at the level of which you perform. In other words, if you get up there and say, I'm a leader and I can do this, everybody will follow. And I just want to bring up one last thing about the most recent group that I've been intimately involved with is Project Cure SMA. here we are down here. I hate the name, by the way. Never call anything cure in neurology, ever. And, but this was a group that we got together to do clinical trials in SMA. We've done 6 or 7. But the mistake that I made on this is very early I was asked to assume a leadership position. And despite my gray years, I thought, oh, these other people have more experience. They're more known in this particular field. I was just getting into it. So I said no. And so lesson 9, as I just commented, don't be afraid to take a leadership role when you're ready. If you lead and if you build it, they will come and they will follow. The New England Journal of Medicine in the next 2 months is going to have a paper on thymectomy and myasthenia gravis, a topic we've been talking about for 50 years. A colleague of mine who's chair at Buffalo, Gil Wolfe, about 10 or 12 or 15 years ago, started work on a prospective randomized trial of thymectomy and myasthenia gravis. I thought he was crazy. Everybody thought he was crazy. He was young. He worked with John Newsom Davis in England, and they published the results 2 months ago showing an unequivocal benefit across the board for thymectomy and myasthenia gravis, and it's been accepted by the New England Journal already. And finally, this is, again, a little bit stating the obvious, but even small project may bear much fruit. And when Project Cure was put together, we thought it was, just a very small one-off thing, and it led to 6 or 7 clinical trials, instrumental in helping us build the SMA clinic at Nationwide Children's, and which has fed very well into the gene therapy trials and things going on there now. So I purposely kept this very short, and this is not a rehash of the top 10, but I think it highlights the things that I think are important. The middle one, I think, is vitally important. When I talk to junior faculty and, as a mentor, and particularly people in the neuromuscular group, I always ask this question: are you doing anything you don't want to do? Or are you not doing anything that you really want to do? Except generating RVUs, of course, which they have to do. That was a joke. But no, but I think it's very important to identify what you're good at and do it, and what you're not good at and not do it. And I bet 100 people have told you today that research is a team sport. So do we have time for questions? So thank you for your attention. And I think we might get back on schedule. But